Hello and welcome back to Block Harbor's Advanced Tar series. I'm gonna let Justin kick off. Justin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back again. Going into some more Tara stuff. Today, we're talking about damage scenarios and kind of the impacts that kind of comes out of that, right? So, of course, first off, what is a damage scenario, right? As one would expect, a damage scenario is adverse consequences involving a vehicle or vehicle function and affecting a road user. And the impact portion is going to be a estimate of magnitude of damage or physical harm from a damage scenario. All this is really trying to say here is that some form of attack may occur on a vehicle that causes some form of damage, possibly financially, possibly safety related. Perhaps it limits the operation of the vehicle, or perhaps it is a purely kind of cybersecurity related aspect and has only a impact on privacy. But all of these different categories of impact can lead to damage to the road user or perhaps to the OEM who created the vehicle, right? For the road user, something like a accident would be pretty high on the safety impact, right? That would be quite bad, a pretty bad damage scenario there for them. And it may also be bad for the OEM, as they would have that uh, perhaps some form of litigation to deal with due to a vehicle having some vulnerability that caused said safety flaw and safety related incident to occur. So some of these damage scenarios, going further into them, they can include a relation between the functionality of the item and the adverse consequences. And we would want to include a description of harm to the road user and or relevant assets. We'd also want to include if something were to cause a financial burden on the user, something like a uh, accident would be one that is both safety and financial. However, we might have one that is more financial in that perhaps it is a parked car without a user in it, then it that is perhaps taken over that just bashes into all sorts of cars around them, but doesn't uh, hurt the road user themselves because perhaps they're like shopping somewhere, right? And we also want to look if there is a system malfunction, kind of what would it look like? So we would want to look at, since we've gone over the item definition before, we're looking at a very specific portion of the vehicle. So we can talk about kind of what functions that feature has, look at kind of the worst case scenarios. The easiest things to think about are what if things operate kind of the opposite of how a user intends, operates without the user's input, or doesn't operate at all. Those are kind of the easiest things to think about in terms of how they might cause a damage scenario. We previously did a example of a window control module and feature. So in there, perhaps a damage scenario would be continuing to close even after a user has stopped giving input, right? So a damage scenario there might be a unintended closure of window, perhaps on a finger causing a safety impact, right? Of course, we would assume in this specific one that there are still other safety features in place that would stop the window from continuing to close past resistance, as that perhaps would be a different damage scenario. And we would want to kind of keep track of all of those as we go through looking at a feature. So we do also have a real life example here. One of the most, not necessarily popular, but known about real life example, not exactly the first, but definitely one of the most well known, is of the 2014 Jeep Cherokee that had a connected feature hacked. The hacker was able to remotely cut the engine of the vehicle or cause harm to the occupants in various other ways. I believe they were able to steer it, start it, stop it, pretty much have full control of the vehicle. And this could cause perhaps a pileup on the highway, causing potentially many deaths and hundreds of thousands in damages. So this is something that would have a very, very high rating of impact and also be a very high rated damage scenario that would want to be addressed if the feasibility is pretty much anything more than negligible. So a further example here, kind of broken out further, In this damage scenario, we have a vulnerability via an API on mobile devices allows an attacker to control any connected fleet of vehicles via an OBDII dongle to connect applications on a mobile device. So pretty much what it's saying here is a bunch of different vehicles might have this dongle to connect them to a fleet, to keep track of their mileages, report on any diagnostic issues they may have, to go into maintenance and stuff like that. Perhaps somebody finds a kind of back door into these devices and is able to take control of all of these vehicles, right? So the threat here, kind of the attack, is unauthorized commands on vehicle. Exploiting an application allowed the attacker to execute commands on the CAN network. And then kind of the goal we would want to put in place to stop this is to prevent unauthorized remote access. The requirement going along with this would be prevent compromise through encryption. And then the concept that these would kind of align with is secure code reviews is required after each major version deployment with automated security tests run in parallel. And these all kind of go in line with trying to build the vehicle and perhaps the dongle to be more secure to begin with, as well as on the mobile device, that application, you'd want to have the code there be checked for it itself being secure as well. And another possible mitigation here would be to harden authorization on the mobile application and the cloud backend to prevent unnecessary commands on the CAN network. So really trying to get a list of different examples and things that are measurable to give a type of protection for this attack, right? So to get somebody not to have API access, you want to make sure that they have to authorize. You want to make sure that anything that currently exists and is good to go has encryption, so nobody can just kind of middleman the attack. And you want to also make sure that the application itself isn't easily readable by just some random person, right? You would want the application code to be encrypted when it's stored so nobody can access the master files and see everything that's going on and be able to send those API commands themselves. So of all the things that kind of go into the scope of the damage, we want to look at the kind of severity of the impact, what type of damage is occurring, and then also the number of affected systems, be that different components in the vehicle or external to the vehicle. Like we'd mentioned in that previous example, the back end might be a part of it, mobile devices, uh, perhaps multiple vehicles, houses, right? All these different things could possibly be part of a damage scenario. So the impact analysis, as I had brought up before, consists of SFOP, is what we like to call it. So safety, financial, operational, and privacy impacts. These are potential adverse consequences for road users in the impact categories of, as I said, safety, financial, operational, and privacy, respectively. So pretty much what can potentially break, considering the most impactful occurrence, ranges from negligible to severe impacts, so 0 to 3. Pretty much what we're looking at is perhaps for the Jeep example, right? The safety impact there, since they have full physical control of the vehicle and can cause a bad pileup, would be perhaps life-threatening to the user, the road user, right? So that would be a S3 of life-threatening. Financial, again, a pileup is kind of the worst case here. So that again is going to be a 3, might cause personal bankruptcy. And then operational, there's no more control over the vehicle, right? That's also going to be a 3. Privacy, however, does not seem to be affected. Perhaps if you go through the entire paper, maybe they do have some way to also get um, user information or like Bluetooth contacts or something like that. But strictly about the control of the vehicle, privacy would not be affected. So it would be P0 for few inconveniences. And that's how you would track the damage scenarios or the impact analysis for that specific damage scenario. Here, another example. We have a damage scenario of vehicle cannot be driven at night because the driver perceives the headlamp function was inhibited while parked. So the impact category of operational here would be major, which would be a 2. And then a front collision with a narrow stationary object like a tree caused by unintentional or unintended turning off of headlamp during night driving at medium speed. This would be listed as severe as for safety, right? The impact category here is S, and the rating here would be a 3 due to possibly causing a front end collision and damage to the road user themselves. And then malfunctioning of the automatic high beam caused by headlamp always remaining at low beam during night driving. This has a operational impact of moderate or 1. We can assume this to be the case as it wouldn't automatically cause a severe impact to the vehicle, right? You can still drive it. However, you don't have the ability to possibly see as much as you would like to, especially on the kind of back roads where deer are running around more frequently than they might be on like a highway where you normally wouldn't be using high beams. Then, kind of wrapping up here, a quick check for everybody. We've gone through all this information. If you remember, what are the 4 main categories that we were looking at when we were talking about the impact analysis? So this would be the damage scenario. We're looking at how that might be affecting the road user. What different types of impacts are there? If you remember, the acronym for this was SFOP. So that would be safety, financial, operational, and privacy. Good job to anybody who got that. And that is it for this module. Thank you for sticking along. Hopefully you learned something.
Hey, Justin, great job so far. We've been getting pretty good feedback. Seems that everyone loves your voice. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll make sure to keep Justin on and excited to continue the series with y'all. Hope everyone has a good one.